It's never enough to just have an idea. If you want to succeed, you need to go beyond just having amazing, groundbreaking ideas, building that idea into a product, but also launching that idea, that product in the right way. You need to make sure that you're launching your product to the right market at the right time, at the right pace, and it's a way that your target audience would easily adopt and become more familiar with your product or even service. Now, in this video, I want to talk about product launching the right way. What are the best practices that you need to know in launching your product, from bringing it out to the market the first time to acquiring users and even sustaining the usage of your product in the marketplace? To make this video today, I'm with Taslim OKUNOLA. Taslim is a product marketing manager at Google. He works in the Sub-Saharan African team, right? In 2019, Taslim was involved in the product launch and development of literally all the products that are launched in Google in Nigeria, in Kenya, and in South Africa. In other words, when it comes to product marketing, Taslim is like a major subject matter expert. And he's also my friend, so I have like good friends. Thank you, Taslim, for coming to do this with me.
Thanks, Pete, for having me.
You're
Really
welcome.
excited to be on the show today.
Are you?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So let's just go right into it. First of all, let's talk about product launches, and then what are the key things that we need to do as a startup founder or as a product marketer or a digital marketer when you're involved in the launching of a product?
Yeah, thanks. I'd like to start with painting a picture of what most people think about when they think about product launches.
Yeah.
So, people have an idea and they think more around the day of launch, what happens. You see, when you think about product launches, you think about a bougie invite-only event that has the who's
Celebrities,
who,
influencers, yeah.
and basically someone similarly important in the company comes on stage to tell you about all the great things the product can do. And you do a number of press releases, and that's it. And these can be in any form, actually. You have like the big events for very big companies. You have the medium-sized events for smaller companies. And you have some companies that don't even do an event to launch a product, but at least they do. Yeah, but at least they do some activity around it.
Yeah.
And when people think about product launches, this is basically what they think about. And I think what I found was that there is a lot of work that goes on in the background to really push a product out there. And the way I think about product launches is in three key phases. There's the pre-launch. What do you have to do before you actually roll out the product? Then there is the actual launch, what you do, which is what everyone sees on the day of the product launch. And there is the post-launch. What do you do after launching? And I've found more often that businesses sort of focus most of their time on the launch and really forget the other phases, which you need to get right to really build and launch a successful product.
I mean, I can totally relate. I've worked a lot of brands, and when it's about, we have a new product in the market, you know what are we going to do on the launch day? Which influencers are we going to call? Are we going to have an event? What channels are we going to use? How much money should we spend? Yeah, blog posts, press releases, and they pushed out there, and then that's it. Yeah. Everybody just chills. But definitely, there are different things. It's like there's so many things working in the background for it to actually work. Exactly. And even after you roll out the product or you make the announcement, there's still a lot of things that need to keep working in that background to make sure that you sustain it. So let's talk about these three different stages: pre-launch, then the launch itself, and then the post-launch. As a founder or entrepreneur or marketer, what are the things that I need to pay attention to for pre-launch, like before I actually roll out or that day of the rollout? What are the different elements that we should pay attention to?
Launching a product is like cooking a soup.
For sure.
At the end of the day, you have to, first of all, know what you want to cook. So you have an idea of a soup you want to cook, maybe banga or F4. Then you have to get the right ingredients. You have to get the right food stuff. That's your pre-launch.
Okay.
And what happened is it's like a mix of different functions.
Okay.
And this can roll into multiple teams in large companies. A big company like a Fortune 500 company would have a PR team, a marketing team, a product team that has software engineers, UXRs, etc. All these teams have to come together at the pre-launch to work actively on the product. Now, for a very smaller company, you can have like 1 or 2 people having all these functions on their, wearing so many hats, right? They still have to like come together. The key thing here is that you have to bring together a lot of functions at the pre-launch phase to really get a product going. And one of the key things you want to do at the pre-launch is do research. I cannot stress enough how important research is in every phase of product management, right? You want to do research to test your idea. The first time you get the idea, you want to speak to a couple of people. Does this idea even make sense? And what you get from research is you don't get a yes or no. You get opportunity to refine your idea into something more realistic, into something the market will buy into, right? And then when you really understand what kind of thing you want to do for the market, you also need to do research to understand what the users want. And then how do you marry that with what you have in mind? Because what happens is that you have all this fantastic, bright idea, and you think everyone would love it, but then the user wants something slightly different or completely different. So if you roll out like that with the idea you have, you end up building a very good product for no one. Right? So you need to do research, you need to understand your users to also understand the market you're rolling out in. And then you really need to also know what it takes to build a product at the end of the day. Getting the right people in the room, getting the right talent, right? If it's a tech product, get the right software engineers. If it's a fashion product, get the right designers, the right tailors, right? So you really need to also understand getting the right people in the room to build it. At the pre-launch is where you actually plan for all the phases. So at the pre-launch, you need to know what to do at the launch phase. You need to know what to do after launching. Because you don't just want to launch and leave the product to fly on its own. You need to have like
a sustainability plan.
Exactly. So that's what I think is really important in the pre-launch.
So what you're saying is in the pre-launch stage is where you sort of, it's pre-launch is product development, is market research, and is the launch rollout plan, right? So when I'm thinking about launching a product, the first thing I'm thinking about is, first of all, what's my product? What's the idea? Is there a market for this product? Do I have the people, the resources, the time, the money to be able to actually build the product within the time frame that will be valuable to the market? And then when I'm able to build it, how do I actually want to launch out? What am I going to do for the rollout plan? What am I going to do after the rollout plan? So it's like, it's literally the most, in my opinion, I'm thinking like it's the most important phase because it's from ideation to development down to what you're going to do after you even launch it.
It is. And let me say something. There are 30,000 businesses, or 30,000 products rather, that are rolled out every year, according to a Harvard Business School professor.
30,000 products.
30,000 products every year. Guess how many percentage of these new products fail?
99%.
That means we don't have any products coming out, right? But yeah, you're close. 95% of these products fail. That means
and it's cuts across all industries.
Yeah, cuts across all industry. CPG, tech, all industry. 285,000 products don't succeed. And these are all products that have, got a lot of money, a lot of talent, a lot of time resources put into it. They don't go beyond what they're supposed to be. And that's also why I think it's also interesting to learn from the failures of products in the past, right? And one of the examples of cases in the past where products have not really done a good pre-launch phase before going into launch, it will be the Microsoft Windows Vista. Windows Vista was a total failure. It launched in January 2007. It was a big fancy event in New York. Microsoft has the money.
All the money.
What you would think a normal launch should have, it has everything. It had everything. And what happened was, it didn't really pick up as it should. In fact, it had about $500 million in marketing budgets. Let's rephrase that. $500 million in marketing.
If I convert that to Naira, that's crazy.
Yeah, but why didn't it fly? Microsoft Windows Vista came with a lot of performance issues. a lot of bug. It was so slow. And people were like, Windows XP is even better. You see, it got to a stage where Dell started making new computers with Windows XP because they just couldn't put Vista on it. What's the essence of buying something new when it's slower than what you were using before?
Yeah.
And this is a very classic example of launching a product that is not ready.
Yeah.
So we have businesses out there who are racing against timelines. They want to just get something out in time. And what they end up doing is they end up shipping a product that's not even ready for the market. That means they failed at the pre-launch. You need to make sure.
And once you fail at the pre-launch, there's nothing you're doing for launch, post-launch, nothing. It just fails.
And what the story of Microsoft Vista will tell you is you can't even use marketing to fix a bad product.
Yeah.
If a product is bad, you shouldn't be doing marketing. You should be fixing this product.
Yeah.
Right?
That's very
So if $500 million cannot save a product, I don't know. I don't know what can.
Right.
It's not about the money. It's about getting it right from the start.
Yeah.
And that includes doing a lot of having a lot of conversations with your users. You know, talking to them, telling them, okay, I have this prototype. Do you think it's better than what you currently have? Why would you even switch? Get it here. Microsoft was not competing with a competitor. They had the largest market share. They were competing with themselves, and they still couldn't make it work.
That's incredible. I mean, key things that I've gotten from this is, first of all, it doesn't matter how much money you have or do not have. It's not really about the spend.
Yeah.
It's can people use your product? So it's two things. Is there a market for the product? And then if there's a market, it's will your product actually perform and do what it's supposed to do?
Yeah.
If it isn't, or if it doesn't, then there's no reason to the market at all. I know when I talk to a lot of startups, they're always like speed.
Yeah.
We have to launch because everybody has the same idea. But you have to take a step back to make sure that what you're launching actually works.
Exactly.
I mean, instead of doing the amazing, all the idea, all the features, you can do an MVP. But make sure that that's scaled and idea works. The most important thing is creating a product that, one, there's a market, people actually need it or want it, and two, when they actually get it, it actually does exactly what it should do.
Correct.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about the actual launch. So when we're launching events, say we've gotten everything right, we've done our research, we've done the product development, performance, A1, everything. What should we do to make sure that we make a lot of buzz, make a lot of noise, but that we get a lot of adoption early on?
I think for the actual launch, and we might not spend a lot of time discussing the actual launch because a lot of people actually get the actual launch right.
Yeah.
It's the specialty of people. They know how to throw big fancy events to announce this new revolutionary product they are bringing to market. They know how to cuddle up with press, to put out stories about them. They know how to get on the Forbes list, right? But the thing is, for the actual launch, I think what is really important is your key messaging.
Yeah.
Getting the key messaging right is really important because what can end up happening if you're not really concrete about what you want to push out as messaging is you see that people are saying different things about what you have.
Yeah.
And that's like...
Or they don't even understand it.
Yeah. And I think that is one of like what can cause an early death for a product if people don't really get what you're pushing out.
Yeah.
So what your goal should be for launch is reinforcing one key messaging that is resounding and able to capture capture the hearts of your customer, right? So if you're selling, say, an improvement in a product, it's not even a brand new product. What is changing? Is it higher level in security? Is it more safe to use it? Will it help people save their storage space? Will it help them save their data? What is that key messaging you want to push? And it can be like just 3 bullet points. And that is that resounding messaging you want to push across your events, your announcements, your press releases.
Everything.
You want to make sure that it is what people know you for. And how you find your key messaging is not rocket science.
Yeah.
You don't need to lock your team into a room, do brainstorming about what the messaging should be. Talk to your users. So like you said, they've made an MVP. They're piloting with like 10 users. Give 10 people your product before actual launch. Tell them to use it. Tell them to come back like
tell you what it is.
In 10 or 15 days and tell you what it is. Whatever they tell you it is, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Say you think your product does all this fancy thing, you've people like to throw around buzzwords. You've used artificial intelligence and machine learning and cloud computing to get all of these things right.
Drag them.
But what
We
your
don't know
users
what
are saying is that, oh, I love that this allows me to message my dad. That should be your key messaging.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think for launch, what you should focus on doubling down on is the key messaging.
That makes sense. So
Get
it's
it in
not
front.
really about the event. It's not about the buzz. It's not even about necessarily the influencers you use or how much money you're spending that day. Is at the end of it, that day, that week, what are people going to be saying about your product?
Exactly.
Is it going to be multiple things, or is it going to be that one key message? And if it's that one key message, is it exactly what you had in mind? There has to be a sort of, they have to be able to marry themselves, what people are saying about your product and also what you think or what you're saying about your product. If your users are saying one thing about your product, but you think it's something else, then somebody's wrong and you are the one that's most likely wrong.
Exactly.
The customer always wins every single time.
I tell people, if what you think your product is doing is different from what your users think it's doing, it's either you change your users, you start targeting the right people, or you tweak your product to fit the current people you have.
True. Very true. That's very true. That's very true. Let's repeat it again. It's like serious point.
I said, if what you think your product is doing is different from what your users think it is, it's either you change those users by targeting the right people who would think the same thing that you're thinking, right? Or you tweak your product to fit the interest of those users.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's target audience first. It's customer centric every single time. Every single time. I mean, so just make sure that you're paying attention to your messaging. Make sure that the messaging you're putting out there is something that is beneficial to your users. It's not just that, it's not something fancy, it's not buzzwords, but it's something that your users find beneficial, they find value in, and they understand. And it's easy to remember, because if it's easy to remember, then it's easier for them to keep selling it for you, and it's easier for it to be resounding, just like Taslim said. So make sure that, one, the messaging that you end up in, it's something that is beneficial to users. They can sort of see themselves in it. They can see value in it. It's something that they also understand. They don't need to check a dictionary or ask people or start looking for your about us or reading a brand brochure to understand what your product actually does for them or what it means.
Exactly.
And so it's something that is super catchy, very short, very straight to the point, so they can keep saying it for you. It's easier for them to remember. It's easier also for you to remember, right? So forget the buzz, the event. Focus first on the messaging. What are we going to be saying on that day or for that period of time? And then there's the post-launch. And what should we do after roll out? What's the plan?
I think the post-launch is really important. And when people think about the post-launch, they think about marketing, right?
Yeah.
They think about the fact that, okay,
acquire users.
I've done this lot of work in building this product. I've put it out there. So let me just do marketing. But post-launch is way more than marketing. And I think one key part of post-launch is being able to track feedback in real time. And this has become very important in this social media age that we are. You put out a bad product, feedback travels so fast and so wild on Twitter, right? So how do you catch these things really early on and fix it? So being able to track feedback in real time is very important post-launch. So set up a feedback apparatus that helps you track feedback easily in real time. You catch bad feedback early on, you decide how to incorporate them into your product to push out the next release that fixes it, and then you're also running the PR journey of fixing all the negative PR that's given you online or anywhere. So that's very important post-launch. And another thing is to be able to manage the growth of your product.
Very true.
And I'll give you an example of a product that sort of failed because they were not able to manage that base. In year 2000, American Biophysics, they built a product that helps to kill mosquitoes. It's called a mosquito magnet. And what happened was, when mosquito magnets launched, people really love it, but they couldn't keep up with the demand. They didn't prepare for that stage if the product flies, right? And it got to the stage of where, how do they keep up with the demand? So they moved their factory from the facility they were using in Rhode Island in the US to a China facility, and the quality dropped, and people went AWire. Customers got mad that the quality dropped. Customers noticed that the quality dropped, and these guys were making $70 million in annual revenue at some points, but they eventually sold the business for $6 million. Yeah. The $70 million was not their worth, it was their annual revenue, so they were worth way more than that.
Of course.
Right. And they sold at the end of the day for $6 million because there was a drastic decline
in quality.
And that also translated to people just ignoring the brand. So there is a part of you also have to prepare for the ramp, for the growth. Because what happens if you're a small startup and you're, say you're running an internet business and you're using like all this cloud-based technology and the cloud infrastructure you're using is so limited? What happens if you get a lot of users? Your website comes crashing. Yeah. So you have to be able to plan for that. And that's what happens post-launch. Another thing is to also be able to plan for multiple scenarios. And this also feeds back to the feedback mechanism I talked about in the beginning. How do you build a feedback apparatus that's so strong that you're able to incorporate feedback almost immediately? Yeah. And an example of this was Go My Way, a Nigerian startup. What they do is they connect people going the same direction. They connect them with themselves, so you can take, say, people in your area to work and back from work, right? And then the platform gets a cut from every trip. But the way the model is, you're taking the same people to work every day. Why do you need a platform? Mm-hmm. So what ends up happening is people use the platform for introduction phase. So I use the platform to discover that you're going my way.
And then
after that, I'm done with the platform.
Just go together.
And that makes the revenue dropped. But how you could have mitigated that is being able to plan for the post-launch, right? Understand all the scenarios that can happen in the post-launch. And it's totally fine not to be able to know what can happen, right?
But the minute you start seeing it,
but the minute you start seeing it, how do you react to it? Yeah. And that's where the feedback apparatus comes from. How do you make sure that you don't stop testing when you launch or pre-launch? You are still testing post-launch. So this research thing actually has to be across all phases, right? You have to talk to users every single time. You have to think about more ways to improve your product. You have to go beyond what you currently have, right? And yeah, so those are like the key things I think are very important in the post.
So feedback loop, prepare for good, and then prepare for different scenarios, and even competition too.
Exactly.
So if you roll out and invest in the market, and then somebody else comes, what do you do to make sure that they don't take all the market from you? Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you very much, Taslim. So I'll just do like a quick recap. We talked about launching product the right way, and in launching product, there are 3 key phases. There's the pre-launch, which is where you do most of your research, right? Is there a market? What do my users want? Would they be ready? Do they have the money to even afford the product? Then the product development itself. Do I have the resources, the people, the expertise to develop the product? And making sure that what I roll out, whether it's just the pilot or is the main product, that it is performing optimally. The thing that can make you fail in pre-launch is rolling out a product that either the market doesn't want or that the market wants but it doesn't perform as the market wants it to perform, right? If you miss these 2 things, there's no amount of money you would have. You can have $500 million like Microsoft Vista, and you still fail woefully. Okay. And then the actual launch, which is the day of the launch. And it's not just really about the events, the influencers, the social media channels you use, the creatives that you use, or the amazing videos or animes, or the channels, or the money that you spend in rolling out. It's more importantly the messaging. So when you're thinking about launching your product, when you're thinking of rolling out, beyond the channels and the money and the people, think the messaging, think the narrative. What am I saying about my product? Would my users easily understand it? Would they be able to see the benefit and see themselves in it? Would they be able to see the value in it? And will it be something that they can easily talk about and resound over and over and over again? And it means that one of the key things that is there for your launch is public relations, is PRO, because it's one thing to have a good message, it's another thing to be able to put it out there so that the people that you want to actually see it or know about your product can actually see it. So focus on messaging, but then the minute you get a very good message, the next thing is, where do I want to put this thing out there so that the people I want can actually see my messaging and love my product immediately they hear about the product. And then after launch, it is post-launch feedback loop. There has to be a way to consistently get feedback from our users, from even people who are just talking about the product but not using the product? What are they saying about it? If it's negative, how can we start, trashing it down? If it's positive, how can we, reinforce it? If it's something that we need to correct about the product, can we get our team to, tweak it immediately and roll out a new version of it? Feedback, look, and support is super important. And I think that Taslim said is super important in launch is prepare for growth. So what happens if you don't fail? What happens when you get 100,000 users in the first month? Can your system, can your platform sustain it? Do you have the resources and the people to sustain it? You need to plan ahead for growth and know how to actually manage when you have an influx of people. And also prepare for multiple scenarios and competition. What are the different things that can happen when people start using your product, when they adopt it? So that you make sure that it's not like you now acquire users and you have a successful user acquisition. But then 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, year down the line, you realize that everybody's leaving because there's something wrong with the product or because you didn't prepare for scenarios. Or maybe a competitor just came out, phew, they did every other thing right and did it better and they've got in your market. These are things to really pay attention across board. But the most important thing here is launching is not just rolling out. Launching is literally everything is cross-functional and it's a long and evolving process.
Yeah.
It literally never stops because
Exactly.
post-launch is over and over and over again.
You do post-launch till you then have to launch another thing.
Or until you die or get
Exactly.
That's amazing. Any last words for our viewers?
One thing I want to reinforce is also something I've said multiple times through the course of the video is understanding the users is very important. And I think the best way to do that is to talk to them. If you don't talk to them, you don't get to know what they're feeling. Being empathetic about the users, being in their shoes, being able to see the things as they see it, and being able to take all those feedback into whatever you're doing. And that really is important at each and every stage. At the stage where you're doing the pre-launch, at the stage where you're deciding what the messaging should be on the launch, and at the stage where you're deciding what to improve in your product. So, yeah.
Focus on the user.
Exactly.
Customer-centric, every time, anytime, every day, all day. All right, guys, if you've watched this video to the end, you're the real MVP. Thank you so much for watching the video. Make sure that you leave a comment. Tell Taslim thank you for this amazing information. I learned a lot. You guys have no idea. If you have any questions, also just comment below. I can send questions to him and I'll come back to the comment section and reply. Also, don't leave this channel without subscribing. Click on the bell notification button below and the subscribe button below.